You ever have one of those gut feelings? You know, that deep sense of knowing something is right or wrong, but you just can't explain why? Well, today we're going to dive right into the science behind that very feeling, the one we call intuition. We're going to explore this incredible connection between our hormones, our life experiences, and that little inner compass we all have. So let's start with a big one. We've all heard the phrase women's intuition, right? It's usually tossed around like a cliche, maybe something a little mystical or even silly. But what if there's way more to it? What if it's not a myth at all? Here's the thing. Science is actually starting to reframe this whole idea. It's not some magical sixth sense. It's a real, tangible skill, something you can actually learn and get better at. And it's a skill that's totally grounded in our biology and shaped by everything we go through in life. Okay, so the fancy scientific term for this is attunement. Now, what does that actually mean? Think of it like your body's built-in Wi-Fi. It's your ability to sync up with and, resonate with what's happening inside, either inside yourself or inside someone else. It's that feeling when you walk into a room and you can just feel the tension, or when you know your friend is upset, even when they're smiling and saying, "I'm fine." You're picking up on all this tiny nonverbal data. That's attunement. So where does an ability like that even come from? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we've got to look at our biological blueprint. This is the nature part of the classic nature versus nurture debate, and it really sets the stage for everything else. This idea right here is just mind-blowing. We tend to think of our brains as this separate command center, but it's not. It's deeply connected to our bodies. Your brain is an endocrine organ, which means it both controls and is controlled by hormones. These are the chemical messengers that basically run the show, influencing everything from how we grow to, and this is the key part, how we act and interact with each other. And when we talk about social behavior, there are four key hormones that researchers call difference makers. You've got oxytocin, the famous bonding hormone, which helps build trust. Then there's estrogen, which is linked to being more sensitive to emotions. On the flip side, testosterone can sometimes dial down empathy. And finally, there's cortisol, our stress hormone. When that stuff is chronically high, it can really mess with our ability to connect with people. It's this unique hormonal cocktail inside each of us that shapes how we see and navigate our social world. And what's really brilliant is how this all ties back to our evolution. I mean, think about it. For thousands of years, the primary caregivers had to be incredibly sensitive to the cues of a baby who couldn't talk, right? That intense bonding process literally wires the nervous system for life. You add in recurring physiological cycles, like menstruation or pregnancy, that pretty much force you to pay attention to what's happening inside your own body, and you start to see how biology built this amazing capacity for attunement right into us. But, biology is only half the story. The world we grow up in, the nurture side of things, plays a massive role in whether we practice and sharpen these intuitive skills. And that's where something called social scripts comes into play. From the time we're little kids, society often hands us very different scripts based on our gender. Think about it. Girls and women are often encouraged to talk about their feelings, to be empathetic, to nurture. Boys and men, on the other hand, are often taught to be tough, to suppress emotions, to compete. Now, this isn't about saying one is better than the other. It's just about recognizing that these social rules give different people a lot more practice at the skill of attunement. So what you get is this feedback loop. The more you're put in situations that require you to manage emotions, whether it's caregiving or just being the social glue in a group, the more you practice. And that practice turns a biological potential into a finely tuned skill. It's like flexing a muscle. Intuition becomes a kind of intelligence that you've sharpened through thousands of hours of real-world use. Okay, but this inner compass isn't perfect. It's not foolproof. It can get knocked off course. It can get distorted. And things like aging and especially chronic stress can seriously mess with our hormonal balance and, as a result, our intuitive clarity. As we get older, our bodies change, and that definitely includes our hormones. This chart gives you a pretty simple snapshot. Generally speaking, as we age, our stress hormone, cortisol, tends to creep up, while sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone start to decline. And this isn't just about physical stuff. It has real, measurable effects on how we think and feel. And that rise in cortisol is a really big deal. In fact, it's pretty damaging. As the research shows, being flooded with cortisol for a long time is literally toxic to the brain. It wears down the very parts of our brain that are crucial for memory, for clear thinking, and for social connection. It basically hits the fast-forward button on aging, both in our bodies and our minds. But maybe the biggest disruptor of all is trauma. A traumatic event can be like a lightning strike to your nervous system. It can sever that vital connection between your mind and your body. It makes it hard to process what you're feeling and what you're sensing, essentially turning your own body into an unreliable narrator. The signals are still there, but you can't trust them anymore.
And this statistic, it's just staggering. Women have nearly double the lifetime rate of PTSD compared to men. And this is despite the fact that men actually experience more physical violence overall. It just highlights this profound vulnerability. It suggests that the very same socialization that hones sensitivity might also make some of us more susceptible when that internal wiring gets disrupted by trauma.
Okay, I know that all sounds pretty heavy, but this is the most important part of the whole story. The really empowering part. That connection, it's not permanently broken. It is absolutely possible to reclaim your inner compass. And I want to be crystal clear about this. Attunement is not some fixed trait you're born with. And it is absolutely 100% not exclusive to women. It is a fundamental human capacity. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can get rusty, it can get damaged, but, and this is the beautiful part, it can also be reclaimed and strengthened by literally anyone who's willing to put in the work. So what does that work look like? Well, the path back usually involves 3 key steps. First, you just have to acknowledge the impact that stress and trauma have had. You have to recognize how it's scrambled the signals. Second, you have to actively work to restore that connection to your body. Things like therapy, meditation, yoga, anything that helps you listen inward again. And finally, the third step is rebuilding trust. It's about slowly, carefully relearning how to connect a feeling in your gut with what it actually means.
So we end here. We've seen how our hormones, our history, and our society are all these powerful difference makers that shape our intuition. The real question is, now that you have this understanding, what difference will you make with it? How are you going to choose to listen to, and maybe even strengthen, your own incredible inner compass?